According to Fox News, as a sign of weakness, only 58% of Americans want to waterboard the diaper bomber.
So 58% say waterboarding should be used on the guy to get information.
58%, folks.
58%.
Well, I wonder how that poll would have worked out if they know this part of the story from another Fox reporter that Bill O'Reilly conveniently forgot to mention to anybody.
Yes, a trial date has been set, but it was actually more interesting to hear from a couple of the passengers who showed up here at court today.
The U.S. government escorted him through security without a passport, and we believe gave him an intentionally defective bomb.
It's a startling allegation from two local attorneys who were on board the 2009 Christmas Day flight to Detroit when Umar Farouk Abdul Muttalib tried to blow up a bomb hidden in his underwear. Kurt and Lori Haskell think the U.S. government was behind the whole thing.
It was intentional, and it went this far to further the war on terror, to get body scanners in the airports.
All right, so almost immediately after the failed Christmas Day terror attack, countries all around the world announced that they would be using full-body scanners to screen airline passengers.
To increase the TSA's budget.
Today, the president weighed in, saying increased security is necessary, especially given recent close calls like the so-called underwear bomber.
To renew the Patriot Act.
The majority's promised that after we vote on this, we will have some hearings. Well, first, in the 111th Congress, we held the hearings before we marked up the Patriot Act, before we asked members to vote on the bill, not after. We have new members in the body who have never voted on the Patriot Act, have never been briefed on how these authorities are used. It is simply not responsible to make them vote when they don't know what they're voting on. I remember hearings being gavelled to a close before they were over. I remember a subcommittee chairman walking out of the hearing while members were raising points of order. I remember microphones being turned off while they were speaking. I remember being forced to convene the hearing on something like 2 days' notice. And Mr. Speaker, one of the reasons the 16 provisions were set to expire in 5 years was because they were deemed too invasive of our civil liberties, possibly invasive enough to be used to violate the very freedoms that our young men and women in uniform too often die protecting.
The numbers show about 18 veteran suicides a day.
I guess we'll start with what I saw in Amsterdam, in case someone's watching or listening that doesn't know who I am. You know, back on Christmas Day 2009, my wife Lori and I were traveling back from Africa, passing through Amsterdam on our way to Detroit, sitting at the gate playing cards, and I saw an Indian man around age 50 wearing a tan suit, walking with, looked like an African teenager who had on jeans and a white t-shirt, didn't have a coat, didn't have any bags. Remember, we're in the middle of winter, and Amsterdam's pretty cold. It's about as cold as it is around here in Detroit in winter. And, you know, I thought they were an odd pair. So I watched them as we were playing cards. They went up to the desk together, talked to the security airline worker who was working there. Just the Indian man spoke, and he said this man needs to board the flight, but he doesn't have a passport.
Whose responsibility was it to look into that information and determine as to whether he was actively involved in Al-Qaeda in Yemen? No one seems to want to answer that.
And then the worker said, well, you have to have a passport to get on the flight. And the Indian man then said, well, he's from Sudan. We do this all the time. And then she referred them down a hallway, which was still in a secure area, and said, you need to go talk to a manager down the hallway. And, you know, at the time, it didn't mean anything to me. I didn't know who these people were. It meant absolutely nothing. But a few hours later, as we were coming down to land in Detroit on our flight, the African man tried to detonate a bomb on our plane.
In all the panic over the Christmas Day attempt to blow up Flight 253 by the so-called underwear bomber, one element has been widely overlooked. Why did the culprit essentially repeat the final flawed step of the failed terror attempt from 8 years ago? Why leave the only secured location to which a passenger has access in utter privacy, a bathroom, and in which a terrorist could complete his destruction and his self-destruction, to instead go sit among passengers who could and did stop him?
And he's subsequently known as the underwear bomber.
Richard Reed, who on December 22, 2001, tried to blow up American Airlines Flight 63 by lighting a fuse protruding from his shoe. That Reed tried to detonate that explosive while at his seat where he was, comparatively easily, stopped. Reed did that instead of going into the bathroom, where he could not have been disturbed.
I was pretty stunned after we landed, and I noticed that it was the same guy, and I leaned over Lori and I said, "Hey, I think maybe I've seen something important here." And right after we got off the plane, the first chance I got, I told the story to the FBI, and I've repeated it hundreds of times since. And obviously, the media doesn't want to cover it. The government doesn't want to hear it.
Thank you. The man prosecutors say tried to blow up that Detroit-bound jet with explosive underpants is back in court again. Prosecutors say they want to show a demonstration video. This is about whether they should be able to show a video of what might have happened but didn't happen, right?
The Haskells say in Amsterdam, before boarding the flight to Detroit, they witnessed Abdul Muttalib arguing with a ticket agent at the gate because he didn't have a passport, when a man in a tan suit with an American accent intervened.
The ticket agent did not want to allow Muttalib on the flight, and this man was very insistent of it. And then she referred them to a manager down the hall.
I've been stonewalled by everybody pretty much. Well, Alex, I've been on your show, I think, 4 or 5 times now, but the first 2 or 3 times I came on, I wasn't drawing these conclusions yet. I'm sure your listeners remember when I was on, and, I wanted to stick to the facts and have the case build up to where I actually believed what you're saying, that this was an intentional government plot. And at some point, there became enough evidence where I firmly agree with you that this was definitely a stage plot by the U.S. government. And I think any of your listeners that are having doubts to that, I think the best evidence of that is to go on the internet and Google Patrick Kennedy, underwear bomber testimony.
Why didn't the consular officer not check the visa status of the Nigerian national at the time a second notice was sent?
He did not do that, Mr. Chairman.
I know he didn't do it, but why not?
Because the second message was launched from another source.
Well, why wasn't it checked?
And watch the video of the Undersecretary of the State Department, Patrick Kennedy, as he squirms in his testimony at Congress, trying every which way to not admit that this was an intentional plot.
We slipped up. I have no statement other than that, sir.
Thank you.
I think it's very telling.
The DHS had the information prior to Christmas Day, but did not have any reliable information to act. Is that where we are?
He was neither on the watch list, nor a no-fly list, nor a selectee list, and so there was no check against those lists would have come up with anything.
The ticket agent did not want to allow Muttalib on the flight, and this man was very insistent of it. And then she referred them to a manager down the hall.
I started going to hearings, and then I would read the press reports about the hearings, and they would be totally different than what I would see at the actual hearing. And
we came across information. We said, this is a dangerous person. We were ready to revoke the visa. We then went to the community and said, should we revoke this visa? And one of the members, and we'd be glad to give you that out in private.
It's interesting. If you think about what my theory on the case is, that an undercover agent from the U.S. government gave Umar an intentionally defective bomb and escorted him through security. That's what really happened here.
We are told that it's a Nigerian man who is associated with Al-Qaeda. You're saying there's something that we're missing here.
Well, that's the fact is that this is a protected patsy. In other words, this is a puppet. This is somebody who's an asset controlled by U.S. intelligence. This is a way to stage a provocation. We've had 4 days of wall-to-wall hysteria worldwide about this. Let's just look at a couple of facts. His father, a rich Nigerian banker, went to the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria on the 19th of November and said, my son is in Yemen. He's at a terrorist training camp. Do something about this.
Our own Jane Meserve broke this news just moments ago. Essentially, the father of the suspect of that attempted airline attack not only notified the State Department of his concerns that his son was radicalized, but also talked to somebody at the CIA, but that person did not relay or transmit a report to other intelligence officials.
Nevertheless, the son is allowed to buy a ticket in Ghana, paying cash, $2,800, for a one-way ticket. He can get on the plane in Nigeria after entering Nigeria illegally, and when he gets to Amsterdam, he's apparently, I think, a mental deficient who can't make it from one gate to another. So according to an eyewitness account, there's a well-dressed Indian man who brings him to the gate for the U.S. flight and says, my client here, or my friend here, doesn't have a passport. Get him on. He's Sudanese, and we do this all the time.
So you're saying
impossible.
There's no way this man should have been able to get on board the plane if he was, in fact, all the things that they're saying.
Well, you know, witnessing the story from the inside out, I've seen how it's played out over the past year and a half. And, you know, I was just a regular guy when this happened. I was nobody. I didn't really have these extreme thoughts of the government or anything. And, you know, these are thoughts I've developed over the past 20 months, doing my research, talking to people, talking to Umar's standby attorney, going to court hearings, talking to other passengers.
Yeah, his standby lawyers think the same thing.
He does. Now, he's kind of hesitant to go out and say that, but you may see that come out during the trial. I don't know exactly how much input he'll have, but if he has his way, this is going to be the case. I'm skeptical that will happen, but yeah, I've developed these thoughts over the past 20 months. They're entirely justified. They're backed by my eyewitness account, other evidence I've come into, and you know, if you don't like what I have to say, I'm sorry, but if you would do all the research that I've done, I think you would come to the same conclusion.